Should you be planning for growth with the headwinds that exist right now? Or are you better just to be a bit more reserved in your growth plans? Because people's pockets, they're not in a big growth phase. Let's recognize where we are in the economic cycle. Let's recognize those headwinds against us. Let's right size our operation to them. If you've built a ton of capacity and it's being unutilized, that's going to be a problem. There's an overhead cost to that.
Welcome back to the Becoming Unleashed show. I am joined today by my friend and fractional CFO, Robert Lee. Just to tell you a little bit about Robert before I let him talk, this guy has more credentials than I even know how to pronounce. He's a CPA, a CA, he's got an MBA. He has 3 decades of success leading growth as both a COO and a CFO. And he's also an amazing leader and human being. And the last time we talked, Robert, if you remember, we were talking about this similar challenge we see business owners facing. And I said to myself, man, we have to turn this into a conversation because business owners have to know that they are not alone, that a lot of other business owners are feeling the compression of these factors. They're seeing that, revenue might be declining, margins are shrinking, customers aren't buying the way they were, employees are more expensive than ever, and sometimes don't even want to show up to work. And the business owners are kind of sitting there going, what the heck is going on? And how do I adapt and get prepared for this new economy I'm finding myself in? So that's the conversation we're into today. And Robert, welcome to the show. Thanks for having it with me.
Oh, man, so good to be back chatting with you. I had such a great time the last. So Happy New Year to you, man. And it's January. Yeah, it's a new year. And all of those things are what the business owners I'm working with were bringing to me in December. So I had my last event with my core group of clients, and it was uniform and almost uncannily uniform that those themes and those topics were ever present. I think another one that you didn't mention that I even want to start out with, which really had me concerned, frankly, was interest borrowing costs are so high, and these guys are cash flow constrained and needing to take on more debt. As a CFO, this is a nightmare for me. The last thing I want to be seeing is businesses taking on more money, and yet it is a necessity for the majority of the clients I had in the room. Margin compression, their costs have gone up and they haven't kept up with their own pricing. And so I'm inspiring them and encouraging them, saying, you need to have a price lift in January. And guess how many wanted to do that?
0, a big fat 0.
Big fat 0. But we had to get over the mindset of when you're creating epic value for your clients, and you need to be in business doing the work you're doing to give the greatness of what you're doing. If you are out of business, you've underserved your population even more. And your clients don't want you to be out of business or losing money. They want you around, and continue to focus on the value that you're bringing to them. And the conversation around price is almost a mute one. It's yes, thank you. Continue to serve me with this greatness and the value proposition. So that was another theme that was super, super common across these guys.
What you're saying is so pertinent and so true. We have a pretty large customer base, and I took time in Q4 to really survey them and get back in touch with them and understand, what issues they're facing. And 100% their issues were parallel to what you're seeing. And it really, for me, provoked a much bigger kind of awakening of understanding that the things that we've known are on the horizon that are affecting the economic outlook for a long time are now, the headwinds are coming. The storm's not here yet, but we're feeling the headwinds. You have, obviously AI disruption, which is twofold. One, it's going to affect labor markets in the US massively, change that completely, and commoditize labor. Two, other countries, China mostly, are accelerating at such a rapid pace on AI implementation that it's going to completely change their ability to outperform from an international competitive standpoint, it just across many different industries. And you add to that the fact that right now there's about 4 international conflicts that could escalate into war at any time. Is it any wonder that our customers are tightening their belts, right? That they're feeling uncertain, and therefore it's affecting how they're spending.
There's no question that all those geopolitical factors and those changing tides of innovation and productivity per capita, that's rippling, man. And customers are talking with their money, and customers too are thinner and leaner, right?
Their costs have gone up. Inflation has eaten into the average person's income by a massive amount. I mean, even our family has felt it to an extent where we're like, wow, like what we used to pay and the margin we had, we live below our means in many ways, but it's amazing just to even look at our bills and imagine how that affects so many others who don't have some of the things that we have. And so I guess, Robert, what I would be interested to know, take us behind the scenes of how you were coaching these business owners as a high-level COO, as a high-level CFO. What are the things that you're telling them to do now to address these cash flow and declining revenue problems they're seeing?
Yeah, love it. Love to. And, my approach is heavily customized and tailored for each business as they come in, because they're not always uniform. But some of the common things, or at least the categories and the steps, are similar. So why don't I just try and take you through a couple of the steps? So the first one, as I kind of even alluded to, is focusing on revenue. Right? And let me back up a step. We're going to look at the P&L, because that's where I first start. The income statement of the business, where are we at? How have we trended month over month, year over year? Where are some variances? What am I seeing? And from that, first focus is I can increase revenue and I can decrease expenses. And my end game is improve the bottom line, bring more profit and more cash in ultimately to the business owner. So with those as my guiding principles, I start at the top of the puzzle. I start on revenue. And as we're driving into that revenue, I'm saying, when was the last time you updated your pricing? Oh, 2 years ago. Well, have you heard of this thing called inflation? Because it's really eaten away everything. And they'll say, but I'm at the top of the market already. I can't update. Next question. How do you know? When was the last time you surveyed the market? 3 years ago. Oh, so you don't think your competitors have done anything in 3 years? And even if it was in a year, almost every time I've asked that prodding question, I said, let's go look right now. Let's go look at one of your competitors right now. And sure enough, they've changed their prices 3 times this year. And so there was just drift. There was drift that the currency of their data wasn't accurate, wasn't timely, and wasn't supporting them in what was happening in the market. So quickly you can bolster confidence when oh, now I'm lagging. I thought I was top of the market. So instant action. And new market factors or new revenue streams. Shipping used to be free, no longer. On some of the service offerings, there's an additional convenience fee that's being introduced. Oh, that never used to exist. And what is that? Largely, that's the competitors or other suppliers in the space recognizing that their costs have been inflated, and they just can't continue to eat them. Be it shipping, fuel surcharge, some of those biggest drivers on their cost profile also are now being passed on as a new revenue line item. And yet some of my clients, just for lack of recency, hadn't done that homework. So strategy number 1, how current are you with your pricing? Is it truly where it needs to be? And ultimately, have you created value along that journey? And whenever I'm encouraging somebody to increase prices, I'm saying, do more for your clients too. Find a way to do more and be better. Service quality, excellence, warranty, depending on the nature of the business, right? A little harder when you're selling an item, but timeliness can still be a distinguishing feature that helps drive that. So, revenue is a big part of the top of the puzzle. and getting pricing updated.
Before we move to expenses, I want to move to expenses too, because I have some really strong opinions on this and I'd love to run them past you. But can you lean a little more into how business owners should think about the new revenue stream piece? The things you talked about, I love, are quick wins. But is there anything you're advising or seeing business owners do to sort of de-risk and diversify their what they're offering to their customer base, or enter new markets that are lower risk, even should we say their current market becomes more compressed or business dries up even more?
So a core principle that I lean into in driving that conversation is margin attention. So many of my clients have multiple margin streams, and I'm saying, be ready to continue to exit, if you haven't already intentionally, those lower margin regions. They're just, you don't want to play in a race to the bottom game. And there are more and more of those that automation, technology are creating. And so I'm advising my businesses to stay out of the race to the bottom. They're small and medium enterprises. They're not large businesses at scale that are competing on economies of scale.
Yeah.
And the big dogs are getting bigger and eating the lunch of the little dogs. And I'm saying, don't be a little dog. Get out of that and go to another soup bowl. Find something else.
Such an important mindset and perspective to take, because I think when crisis happens, entrepreneurs tend to think more and new. And there is some pioneering again that I think, especially in certain industries, will have to happen. That said, I think a lot of good can be done by decommoditizing yourself and really trying to go, what does the market really need right now versus what everyone's offering, and what is being commoditized by AI or big players entering the space? And how do we lean more into that than ever, or focus more attention on where the profit is, right? Going where the profit is and going where the need of the market is, which is why I encourage all business owners to do what you and I are doing right now, which is go talk to your customers, go talk to your market, find out.
Number one thing, ask them.
Ask
them what they need. And it's not always, oftentimes I even say, don't ask them just about what you're doing for them now. Ask them where their pain is.
Ask them what they're afraid of is ahead, what their fears and concerns are too.
I love that. Even better. Like, where's your pain and what are you worried about on the horizon? And now, to the extent possible, how can I lean in and help you?
100%.
If it's outside your wheelhouse, it is. But at least knowing where there's pain and fear is a place to solve, right? That's something they're going to go solve it.
Yep.
And they have a relationship with you. They have a trust. You know them. You know their needs. And to the extent there's these derivative offerings that can come out of those really candid conversations, that builds lasting win-win relationships. And that's the business I'm in promoting. I want clients and providers to be massive winners along the journey.
So true. I think this is so timely, because when I think about this year, if I were to give it a theme, I would say it's a year of preparation and pioneering again, ahead of 2025. I believe a lot of change will come to a head. Now, could I be wrong on exact timelines? Yes. But even if you just think about that thematically and go, man, what if I spent the first quarter or the first couple quarters talking to my customers, preparing my company for potential economic hard times, which, by the way, doing that will only boost your profit margin and your bottom line, even if things don't go as bad as we think they do. And by some miracle, everything gets better. But I love the mindset that going to your customers implies, because it implies that you're no longer resting on your laurels and you're not stuck in the past or what's worked before. You're instead adopting an entrepreneurial mindset again and really going to find the needs, the pain points, and the problems of your customer base again, and pioneering from that place.
So good. And it's acknowledging you want to learn. It's openness to that letting go of history you're not just looking in the back view mirror and saying, we've always done it this way. This has always worked. And I run this promotion whenever it gets hard and this gets us through it. Try something new.
Yeah.
And let them tell you, man, there are no better ideas than those that come from the clients. And many of the clients I serve, they aren't necessarily the Apples who are pioneering a brand new technology thing, but they're service providers and they're businesses providing, boring businesses in many contexts, yet the clients know what they need best.
Yes.
At least right now. And so, I think,
so let's give our listeners a practical example of this. So without sharing any names, maybe pick a client in your mind who you're like, based on the feedback you're hearing from them, here's like the specific, I don't know if this is too invasive, so you tell me, but I'd love to know, like, here's the specific things, give just high level overview what the company does. Here are kind of the specific things that we were advising they change across revenue, across, maybe, I even think about how some markets needed to eliminate the want categories from the past season and really lean into the need categories of their customers. So can you just talk through some of like how you've been advising maybe a specific client without sharing the specific details?
And maybe I even have a couple clients where I can pull a nugget from each that was salient and relevant. I'm going to pick one from the Northeast because that's kind of our area. So this is a business that's in renovations, construction, siding, windows, all those kinds of things. And the outcome will become more clear. So this is a business that was growing. We're talking 3 million, 5 million, 7 million in revenue, and was all eyes focused on growth. Growth. Premium market space, and was investing to be a $10 million business. Bottom line was putting 5 points on the bottom line. Was really losing from a fat lower section of the expense profile. So the conversation we had 14 months ago was, what matters? Revenue or profit? And is revenue for revenue's sake really what you're after? And if so, help me understand why. Because you don't take revenue home with you. You take profit. And so if I want to understand, is there a path to that? Sometimes there is, right? Maybe I want to sell to private equity. I need to show both. I need to be revenue rich, and because over this category opens up a pathway for me. That wasn't the case for this business. So what ultimately came down was we lowered revenue plans, and then that helped us actually right size expense plans. And because the expense plans were heavy. And so we had to lean things out, and it ultimately led to a constriction in business in the year 2023, but a quadrupling of profit on the bottom line.
Wow.
And so
that's massive.
For me, one of the premises here is not growth for growth's sake, profitable growth or no growth. Like I do not advise to unprofitable growth if there's not a pathway or a reason or rationale. So this was a big mindset shift for him. It was, I got to back down off those TV ads. I got to back down off. I said, you're already spending like your $10 million business and you're not. What if we just leaned this down? And he's had the best year of his life, bar none, right? Massive, massive change. And I think additionally for him and for others is, right now in this time, I think here's a common takeaway for the listeners is, should you be planning for growth with the headwinds that exist right now? Or are you better just to be a bit more reserved in your growth plans? Because people's pockets, they're not in a big growth phase. Let's recognize where we are in the economic cycle. Let's recognize those headwinds against us, and let's right size our operation to them.
Yes.
If you've built a ton of capacity and it's being unutilized, that's going to be a problem. There's an overhead cost to that. So what if you run leaner and tighter and more profitable during this hard time? Take on less debt. Yep. I don't want people trying to push marketing spend to grow in a market that isn't ready right now, that's constricting. So just, do no damage, go into less debt, save a bit more money, be a little bit more lean, and then there'll be another growth spurt, but it'll be a different set of tailwinds instead of headwinds.
So true. I can't tell you the importance of not only tightening up expenses, but building a war chest. And I think, security, for some
safety.
Yeah, for some businesses, that's just like, oh, we'll lean on debt. It's like, well, that's a pretty unstable foundation to build on. I think, and not all companies will be able to avoid that completely, but the more you can lean your operation down now and save, I think just it positions you to be not only able to weather the crisis, but also able to be opportunity ready. And this is one of the things that great companies do, right? They save and prepare ahead of crisis because they know there are discounts and bargains in a crisis on property, on acquisition of other companies, on talent, on, all these sorts of things where if you're financially ready and you're strategically ready, man, you can really position yourself really well for future growth by just having that war chest. I think that's massive.
So it's such a great advice, Richard, because it gives you the ability to be opportunistic. And the other option is you just sit on the sidelines and say, man, I wish I was ready for that. Like that, I saw it and it came and I wish, but I can't.
So true.
Yeah. Massive nugget.
What are your thoughts on, so we talk about leaning out the operation. Like I said, I have some pretty big biases around how business owners need to approach building their team in the next season. And it's not how they've done it in the past, but how, let's boil down to some specific tactical things that business owners need to be thinking about. Like, what could they do to lean out their operation without cannibalizing it, without suddenly taking on a bunch more responsibility or burning out key employees?
Yep. So, well, a couple thoughts jump right to mind. So first one is I encourage everybody, and this is the perfect time of year to do this. You've just finished your fiscal year, right? Most are on calendar year. They've got their prevailing 12 months. My first question to them is recut your budget for the next year and do a line by line expense review. Go through that tactically and really challenge yourself that given the market that's coming up, do I need this to sustain my revenue or do I want this? And at least start the categorization of these are must-have investments that can't go away. Typically protecting the team is one of those musts. Or certainly protecting the whole A category of teams. And I'll even park payroll. It's often, for many of my clients, it's one of their bigger expenses. Let's come back to people. But going through those other things and recognizing what's a must versus a want is the first piece of hygiene. And inevitably, there's things I can save that. Or, oh, shoot, I actually turned that off and I'm not using it. Why am I still being charged? The number of times I've heard that. SaaS subscriptions are slippery little things. I signed up for the 3-month trial and now I'm getting dinged $10 a month. And oh, wait, I got 7 accounts on that. We only need 1 as a business. How did that happen? Because multiple employees needed access. So they opened a new one. So those, they add up shockingly. 100 here, like this can be thousands of dollars a month that before you know it, you're like, whoa, it's one of those leaks that you can stop permanently by just having good hygiene on your monthly review of your statements. Right. And getting in your numbers. But this year end to new year is a beautiful opportunity to look at the year over year and set a new budget going forward that includes your musts and then really categorize within the needs, your musts and your needs. And then the wants, maybe I'll half it. Maybe I can live with maybe I don't need any for 3 months in that special marketing spend, or maybe I don't need to run that program, but I'll bring it back. So that's the other piece I encourage people is don't plan for never within a year, but 6 months is a 50% savings if you can survive without it.
Yeah. You know, I think that it's interesting because one of the areas that I would 100% agree with you that entrepreneurs and business owners should consider trimming is like existing growth focused marketing, or what I would refer to as aspirational marketing. Like, we're going to grow, we're going to take over our market, we're going to let everybody know, market saturation stuff. Like, that's just not really the focus in a crisis. You probably are better off building a war chest and being opportunity ready. That said, I'm interested to know your feedback on this. So I did a lot of research on what great companies did in the Great Depression to remain great. And also the fact that there were more millionaire entrepreneurs made during the Great Depression than any other time period in history. So you look at that and it poses an interesting question, which is, what did they do different than everyone else who was struggling? And I found a couple trends, right? One is they were really tuned into what people needed, which goes back to talking to their customer base. But then this was a really surprising one. They doubled down on the right advertising, the right forms of media and advertising, where when everybody else was pulling back spend, they were the ones actually leading their market and speaking to their market's needs. Not wants, not the previous rest on your laurels marketing. But if you have a real message that can pierce through and help your customers, you actually, maybe not right now, but in the days ahead, when everybody starts to pull their marketing budgets back, you'll actually be able to get advertising space at a bargain, at a discount. And if you want to at least learn from what some Great Depression companies did, they leaned in. So that's why you got to build the war chest now so that you can be in a position to do that, Den. I'd be interested to know your thoughts on that.
Well, I love it. And the power of the metrics that we get nowadays support us in a far more dynamic and agile way to understand the efficacy of our ad spend.
Yes.
Right? We can actually see, and you know, I encourage people, take a month off and see what you see. Shock yourself. Or take your foot off the gas a little and see what you see. But make sure you know what you're measuring and how you're monitoring it. You got your metrics, you know, whichever aspect of the marketing campaign it is. And when prices come down, be well readied to make those investments. And, you know, when you know where your ideal clients are and you see an ad, if an ad dollar is going in and I'm seeing $10, I want you to infinitely feed that machine. No problem.
Yeah.
But if you're putting $1 in and you're not sure, I'm saying, let's pause.
Yes.
You need to get more sure. So getting metrics and measurement and having those analytics, too many people have been successful without them and just felt I can continue to be successful. And I'd offer in a more competitive, stressed market, you can't afford to. And you're better off saving your nickels for when you know things are on deep discount and you can buy on the cheap and take an upside win.
Yes. And usually what's worked in the past as far as marketing and advertising won't work. And so that comes back to listening to your customers and pioneering again, where it's like, okay, what do we need to adapt in our marketing, our messaging? How do we feed back to our customers what it is they're feeling, their wants, needs, fears, and do that in a way that is unique and does create the opportunity for a different ROI than what we've seen in the past.
Another area I think during these times that I see as massively successful in crisis is, and I parked it for a second though, is the team and redirecting investment outside of the business, inside the business. Invest in the team, invest in the culture, invest in their development, their learning, in their engagement, in understanding what they do, leveraging AI to help automation within their universe.
Yes.
You know, we see it so much in social media marketing and all those things that can be automated at scale better now with AI technologies. Do that work. Do that work and ready your machine to be even more productive later.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously you're doing this with your A performers and your superstar team members. But if you can bring up some B players to be A players, that's the difference between good and great companies, right? Jim Collins, another beautiful read. And so
I'm so glad you brought that up because I was literally going to advise entrepreneurs, like if they want to get more info on this, I'd love to know what resources you think they should digest. I'd say The Changing World Order by Ray Dalio is a must read in my opinion. Very, very important just to understand just the global economic and socio-political factors that are going to affect your business. I also think, I can't remember it offhand. I should know the name of it. I might look it up right now. But Jim Collins wrote an incredible book about companies that weathered times of uncertainty. It was a follow-up to Good to Great, and it follows a similar pattern. I think it covers Southwest and just some companies that went through some serious economic crises and actually emerged from them strong. If you search Jim Collins' work, do you remember the name of that book? I'm looking for it right now.
I don't remember the name of it, but I know anything that
Great
Jim
by
writes.
Choice. I just found it.
There you go. Great by Choice.
Great by Choice
is worth a read.
Yes.
Both those, if they haven't been read by entrepreneurs, they and their businesses will instantly benefit. Another one I really like is an author named Keith Cunningham, and he's written a book called The Road Less Stupid.
I love this. One of my favorite business books of all time.
Super easy read, easy to consume, a whole lot of nuggets on avoiding stupid tax and avoiding some painful, expensive lessons. And, talks about practical stuff and in nice common speak. What else are you reading? What else would you encourage our listeners to consider?
This may need to get edited out live, but I just got a notification. I'm trying to figure out if this is still recording. If the team doesn't cut this off, this will be an awkward moment for the listeners, but are we still recording? What's going on?
We're good. I'm seeing a clock runtime still running.
Oh, it's still running on your side? It's not running on mine.
Yep. It's still running on mine. It's still recording on mine.
Okay.
So maybe
we're going to trust your side. We're just going to keep rolling.
Maybe this is a solo conversation, and I don't even. And
I'm just like the blank voice and black face over here, anonymous. Maybe that's what we'll just. This will be the Robert show. I think those resources. I also read a phenomenal book. If someone's interested in AI disruption and kind of how that acceleration in the East, particularly in China and even India, is going to affect the U.S. in the days to come. I think it's also called. AI, or let me see. It's by Shaull Li, and it's AI superpowers, and the subtitle is basically China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order. Fascinating book on really deeply understanding the way that AI disruption is probably going to unfold over the next few years. And how that will affect the U.S. and entrepreneurialism and businesses here, how that is rapidly accelerating in the East, and then kind of how that shifting world order is coming about. And that does not mean that this is another thing I'd be fascinated to get your opinion on is where do you stand on entrepreneurs really going like intentionally diversifying internationally? Beginning now to adopt the competencies and capabilities to do business outside of the dollar, which is more unstable than it's ever been, and outside of the U.S. only, which is very, I would say it's high risk, especially if you're localized to one single region. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, some of the entrepreneurs I am working with are geographically centric. They're service entrepreneurs, chiropractors, electricians, chef service. So they're providing localized service. What I have encouraged them and what many have done, they've expanded across the US to new, so that not franchise, but they've distributed model their businesses. The next graduation of that is go across a border that's not a state line, but it's a country line. And I don't have many that have those ambitions yet. So it's not an area that I've been advising people in terms of going to Europe, Australia, but I think it is prudent. I think many of these headwinds are, uniform across North America. And, probably in other centers of the world. I'm certainly not an expert on Europe, Asia, or any of those regions. But hey, diversification across geography is always valuable. But you have to know where you're going. So tread lightly, pilot small, and learn a lot. I think if you are going abroad, you want to have a local partner.
I love that. That piece is so critical. Because one of the things I think as entrepreneurs we can do is, as you said, look for collaborators and partners in other places of the world, because usually there are things we can do that they are not as competent in. And then there's things that they can do, especially geographically, doors they can open that we could bang on all day long and it would take us a long time to get anywhere. In fact, I was just actually at a conference for entrepreneurs I was asked to speak at, and there were a lot of international business leaders and entrepreneurs in the room. And at the end, I had a really well-respected CEO and business owner from India actually approach me, and he said, "Tell me when, and I will get you on stages in India, and you will have more business than you could ever handle." Because the need for what you do is so massive over there. And Indian companies are flush with cash right now in opposition to the West, in such a way that if you're in the right circles, like the conversion doesn't matter the way it used to. Like the conversion to the dollar doesn't matter. And that was shocking to me, honestly, and honestly a little challenging, because I'm like, I'd never even considered that as an entrepreneur.
No, that's cool. That's news to me. Thank you for sharing.
That's the power of finding a collaborator, and who knows if that will happen. I have a couple people I'm just in very early conversation with about that right now. But the reason I share that story is so that entrepreneurs would open their mind a little bit and not necessarily allow previous prejudices or assumptions about what that would have to entail or look like to limit them from exploring new markets, new collaborations, new partnerships that could really help them.
Yeah, love it, man. Love it. Another, if I offer one more concept that I encourage people is, when you are looking around to go somewhere else, sometimes the least likely person you talk to is the competition. And I encourage business owners to become friendly and aware of who your competition is, and seek pathways of collaboration instead of competition. 100%. Find a way to win together.
100%.
So too many times, even within smaller geographies, not outside boundaries, I say, get close with your competition and win together.
Yes. I think it's a Dan Sullivan thing, right? Where he says most entrepreneurs live in competition and isolation, and they need to shift into collaboration and connection, even with competitors, who they would consider competitors.
100% the theme I'm pushing on the regular, because I see it succeed every time. I see that change from that isolation and competition mindset to the collaboration and connection as it's 2 + 2 = 6. It just works better. And everybody is pleasantly relieved when it does. It's not to say you let your guard down and you're a walkover and somebody takes you over, but find spirited ways to collaborate and win together. With that mindset, changes the rule book.
So true. Actually, that's a great segue into something we were talking about earlier. But for any of those who are listening who feel kind of the headwinds right now and you want to prepare for the coming storm, we're actually hosting multiple events themed around this idea of the profit apocalypse that really is kind of on the horizon, and helping business owners build an apocalypse-ready company that's prepared to adapt and meet the challenges of kind of the new economic era we find ourselves in. You can check the show notes to find more info about those events if you'd like to participate. This is really a mission for us, not just kind of a make money thing. We want to help business owners really prosper in crisis. And I know, Rob, we were even talking about ways we could collaborate on that. So it'll be fun to continue to have this conversation there. But I'd encourage anyone who really feels like they want to take these principles and actually start to put them into a plan to join us for one of those events. Robert, as we kind of begin to wrap, if there was kind of if there was just a couple things that you could summarize for entrepreneurs to take away as their action plan today, a couple things that you'd recommend they do, and maybe an encouragement you have for them, what would that be?
So no question, the top of the priority is be careful with your cash and get more intimate with your numbers. It's, if there was ever a time to lean into your financial statements and increase your cadence, if you used to review them monthly or quarterly, do them faster. Cash is so important right now, and you want to be able to course correct sooner than it's been 6 months and we're out of money and we're having struggles to make payroll. What happened? So get connected with your accounting team and invite them to be providing you numbers. And if you're not doing monthly reviews, get at it. But I think on a cash flash, you should be even upping your cadence every couple of weeks. So that's paramount. I think manage your spend will help. When you're in that mindset, it'll help you. Do I really need this? Is it a must or is it a want? And challenge yourselves to park those wants for a while, even a few months, to help the bottom line and help you build that war chest readiness will insulate you while others are struggling and provide you the luxury of opportunity when they're presented to have a choice to participate and to acquire that talent, to make that investment, to acquire some real estate, whatever, market share. Being in a position of choice because you have some working capital in front of you will be a game changer when tides turn and you've got tailwinds helping you. So those are my key points.
Such good key points, Robert. This was amazing. Thank you so much for this conversation, and I'm so excited to continue to talk about how we can collaborate. Thanks for being here.
We shall. Thank you so much for having me on, Richard. It's been a blast.